Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's P&G Alumni Network webinar series. This is your host, Ileana Rojas, and I'll be emceeing for today. And I'm very excited for our guest today, Susan Mboya, who will be sharing with us 10 tips to develop great partners. Of note, Susan will be one of the many amazing speakers at the P&G Alumni Global Conference in Madrid, so I invite you to sign up and meet her, as many others. I know I already did. Before I pass on the baton to Susan, let me take you through a couple of announcements on how this enrichment series works. This is a monthly series where our goal is to connect members and provide enriching content where we hope you learn something new and leave you inspired. And we do this by leveraging the expertise that we have within the network. Our webinars are also recorded so that you can go back and review anything you want to listen to again or share with your friends via our P&G Alumni Network YouTube channel. All of this is part of a bigger mission of the P&G Alumni Network, which is a nonprofit founded by former P&G employees to share ideas, talents, and resources with each other, our communities, and philanthropy efforts. With more than 35,000 registered members in 45 chapters worldwide, the P&G Alumni Network is officially recognized and supported by P&G. We connect via global conferences, local chapters, industry events, and online content. Our nonprofit foundation supports economic empowerment initiatives in communities around the world. Now, if you're not aware already, our 2019 Global Conference is in Madrid, Spain, set for October 24th through the 26th. And Susan, as I mentioned earlier, will be one of the speakers attending, so we're very excited to have her on today. Our last conference was held in Cincinnati in October 2017 and was a huge success, attended by alums from all over the world, including inspiring, thought-provoking speakers and breakout sessions and workshops. We hope to see you this coming October at our next conference to be held at the Intercontinental in Madrid, where you will also be able to meet Susan in person. You can find more information on the network's website at pngalums.com, which, by the way, just relaunched, so I invite you to check it out and register if you haven't already done so. You will also receive P&G Alumni Network newsletters and emails where you will receive more information about the global conference, as well as other exciting events from each of the chapters near you. Now, a couple of notes on the webinar logistics. This is your screen where you will see content, polls, slides, etc. One thing you won't see is the webcams. To the right, you'll also see the control panel. You'll notice that your line is muted to avoid hearing dogs barking in the back or any other distracting noises. But don't worry, if you have any questions, you'll still be able to ask them through the control panel at any time through the webinar, and we'll have time towards the end of the webinar to go through them. Note that the question you ask will only be visible to me, and I do apologize beforehand as I may not be able to get to all the questions, but I'll do my best to go through most of them. Now, without further ado, let me introduce to you Susan Mboya. She's the Principal and International Advisor for Navigators Global. In this role, Susan leads Navigators International Advisory Services, leveraging her substantial background in international politics and development, including the development of strategies and implementation of successful political campaigns in Africa, and on large-scale multi-country development programs across the Eurasia region. Susan has served in an advisory role to leaders, high-level government officials, NGOs, C-suite executives, and local and economic and political leaders, and was the First Lady of Nairobi from 2013 to 2017. Prior to this, Susan was the President of the Coca-Cola Africa Foundation and also the Group Director for Women's Economic Empowerment, with responsibility for Coca-Cola's development programs across the 90 countries under Coca-Cola Eurasia Africa Group. Her accomplishments during this time are outstanding, always building strategic partnerships to achieve the economic empowerment of women or lead socially responsible initiatives across Africa. Susan started her career at Procter & Gamble in Cincinnati as an assistant brand manager in the health sector and enjoyed a successful 14-year career in general management, where she played various roles in a number of sectors, including paper products, diapers, healthcare, and oral care, including a pivotal role as Global Director of Oral-B Brushing during the acquisition of Gillette. She also worked for several years in P&G's customer sales organization, working with Target, Walmart, and other large chains. Dr. Mboya has been the chairman of Liberty Holdings Kenya Limited since December 2012. She's also the founder of Coca-Cola Africa Educational Fund, a 501c3 nonprofit organization that has provided over 60 million in scholarships for 350 young African women from marginalized backgrounds at 66 top colleges and universities in the US, Canada, and Africa. Susan has been recognized many times, both nationally and internationally. She's been inducted into the American Advertising Federation Hall of Achievement, was named Ebony's Magazine's Marketeer of the Year, was awarded the Elder of the Burning Spear by the President of Kenya in recognition of her service to the country, and was recognized as an Internationalist of the Year. Dr. Mboya has been awarded honorary doctorates from Lakeland College in 2009 and the University of Massachusetts in Boston 2016. For her work in empowering women and youth. And most recently, she won the 2019 Alumni Humanitarian Award. She's passionate about entrepreneurship, mentorship, and women and youth development, and continues to dedicate herself both in her public and private capacity to the process. Thank you so much for being here with us today and talking about how to develop partners. And we're so excited. And I'll pass it on to you, Susan.
Thank you, Eliana. And good morning, everyone. I hope everyone can see the screen. Thanks so much, Diana, for that very kind introduction. Maybe just a little bit of context before I begin. As you said, I spent the bulk of my career in the general management track, and only moved into the nonprofit, if you will, side of the business about 6 or 7 years ago. It was a huge learning experience, and a lot of what I'm going to share today are some of the lessons that I learned in the process of making that transition. As many of you know, for the nonprofit world and running foundations, partnerships are vital to the success of any project, and not just the partnership itself, but everything that goes into starting up a partnership and then nurturing and maintaining a partnership. So that's the context in which I'll be talking. I'll be talking about partnerships in the context of business, and how one might successfully work with outside partners to make a business project successful. So just, maybe stating the obvious, successful partnerships bring together the best of each partner to achieve goals that no one sector could achieve alone, and that create value for all. Really great partnerships have a synergistic effect where, you have 1 + 1 = 4, or 1 + 1 = 5. And I think, a lot of what I'll be talking about today is how to achieve those kinds of partnerships. So there are several distinct types of partners, as I look across the work that we did. Worked with funding partners. I'll get into a little bit more detail on each one, who provide, if not the funding, then the funding to scale a project. Commercial partners, each of whom bring different aspects to the project. From funding to technical expertise. Implementing partners, who actually go out and get the work done. Sometimes that is our own teams, but sometimes it's other teams that have they have expertise that we don't. And then government partners. I'll start with funding partners. Funding partners, we look for people with mutual interests. Funding partners typically work through a grant or bidding process or by establishment of mutual goals. And these partners typically start with they'll set partnership goals, performance criteria, monitor and communicate progress against those goals. For example, if they've set or they've offered matching funds, we'll want to see tracking, we'll need to be able to track and measure very clearly if those matching funds are dependent on achieving certain goals. Commercial partners offer goods and services that enhance the entrepreneur's needs, provide economies of scale, variable operational costs, incremental streams of revenue, and make the business more efficient. Commercial partners can also attract additional partners to the project. In many ways, we, working as, whether it's as Coca-Cola or Procter & Gamble, serve as commercial partners. Another thing that commercial partners bring to the table is, sort of more sophisticated processes and systems that can help the project overall to be more effective. Implementing partners provide expertise, oversight, capacity as well, tend to operationalize the project, build the capacity, capability of the program employees, manage the partnership financials, reporting, reinforce sound financial principles, provide life skills, in-market tracking, monitoring, and tracking and monitoring of assets. Working with, both as whether it's the Coca-Cola company, the Coca-Cola Africa Foundation. A lot of the projects that we were doing were in rural areas. We're dealing with large-scale projects that we as a company couldn't do in a cost-effective way. Implementing partners tend to be NGOs who are used to working closely with communities, including very marginalized communities, far-flung communities, able to cover large ground and large-scale projects, and to do so in a way that's much more cost-effective than a for-profit organization. And then finally, government partners also bring something unique to the table. Provide access, provide scale, the support required to scale initiatives and access markets. When we worked with government, government can provide access to resources in the form of tax incentives or rebates for the program, technical assistance. They may provide what we call an enabling environment, providing the requisite infrastructure and scale, whether it's in terms of roads, etc., and also enabling policies such as legislation that all work to enable or to make a project more efficient. I spent a good part of my time over the last 5 years working on a women's economic empowerment program for Coca-Cola, the 5x20 initiative, where we were working to provide access to jobs, to training, and access to finance to women, women across the globe. And governments across the globe played a key part in that, in all of these aspects, in providing tax incentives for women who were starting new businesses. In some instances, in legislating or making it more efficient or more lucrative for cities to provide space for women to start businesses, to provide licenses for women to start businesses. So again, just to summarize, each partner has a distinct role to play. Just give a very typical example of how we worked. For ourselves as the business provided the processes, the assets, and to some degree the funding. Also, funding partners would play a role. The government would provide the infrastructure, public services, enabling policy and regulations, and civil society, or implementing partners, would actually operationalize the initiative. So the operational expertise and the community linkages. So how do we make partnerships work? I think this is really now the meat of the issue. in working through partnerships, there were kind of three critical stages: the envisioning stage, the building stage, and when I say building, it's not building of the project, but building of the partnership, and then the implementation of the same. So envisioning or opportunity mapping is really around, first of all, starting with establishing the goals, what it is that you're trying to achieve, and then mapping opportunities at the intersection of what are the business needs, what are the societal needs, what are the needs of all the different partners, broadly defining the project scope, investing time in actually scoping the project, identifying possible stakeholders through stakeholder mapping, identifying synergies, bringing together the best to achieve goals that no one party could achieve alone, as we said before. Stakeholder mapping is a key component of this. First of all, by mapping out the key interests, understanding who the key stakeholders are or who the key players are in each of the areas of interest, mapping out the interests of each party, understanding which interests are mutual, really then helps to create a roadmap to who all the potential partners might be. So for example, a government that's looking to fulfill a manifesto or mandates like job creation would be a great partner for a program that is looking to economically empower, because at the end of the day, that is what both parties are looking to do. The most common way to map is power and interest. Power describes a stakeholder's level of influence in the system, how much he or she can direct or coerce a project and other stakeholders, and then the interest, the degree to which a stakeholder will be affected by the project. And this just gives an example. So for a partnership to succeed, one really has to take the time to understand the needs and success factors for each partner, as well as what each partner uniquely brings to the partnership. And the diagram below just sort of tries to illustrate what that might look like. You've got three types of partners: government partner, funding partner, implementing partner, all looking to empower communities. What they bring to the table is a little different. The implementing partner and government partner might be bringing more on the technical expertise side. Government partner, funding partner provide the resources to scale. Government partners can provide policy and infrastructure, and that's actually probably one of the goals of a funding partner, is to influence policy. Implementing partners and funding partners provide the human and financial resources, provide and fund the human and financial resources. So each partner has mutual and overlapping goals. They may play different roles in the process of forming the partnership. And it's really important upfront to have this view or this map of where everybody stands and what everybody stands to bring to the partnership, but also importantly, what everyone stands to gain from the partnership. Building partnerships. I think, for many of us, when we look at projects, we go straight from, okay, we've envisioned the project and now we can start. With partnership-based projects, there's this extra step, the actual building of the project, of the partnership. And all of this needs to happen before implementation in order to lay the groundwork for a successful partnership. You'll see I've highlighted time and time and time, because partnerships do take a lot of time, surprisingly, a surprising amount of time. The building part of a partnership can take a year. I've had partnerships that have taken 2 years to build. A lot of times we're building partnerships with the various identified key stakeholders, building them in parallel. It's a lot like herding cats. But I think a really key component, something that I've learned, the most successful partnerships are the ones where we invested time in the actual building. We've already talked about scoping, the details of the project, making sure that It's also important to make sure that all partners have a similar view of the scope and the goals of the project. Everybody understands where we're trying to go, what we're trying to achieve, and what success looks like, and understands it the same way. The partnership identifies opportunities for leverage, for example, matching grants. Take the time to understand individual goals as well as shared goals. So it's as important to understand what each partner, each of your potential partners, will get out of the project, because it will help to ensure that at all times you have a good understanding of how each partner is going to react to positive and setbacks in the initiative. It's really important to understand the value proposition for each partner. Also, to from the standpoint of it's important to understand at what point does a partnership or a project stop being valuable to another partner. Something that may still be valuable to you may have lost its value to one of your partners, and so understanding what their goals are, individual goals, is really important, and tracking and measuring that. Investing time and resources in relationship building upfront, building trust. Can't emphasize that enough. I will come back to that. Because at the end of the day, all of this, all of the work, all of the partnerships, things go wrong. Things don't go according to plan. And what I've found is that the one thing that one can always fall back on is trust. If that trust is there, holding the partnership together, holding the project together, is a lot easier than when that doesn't exist. Taking the time to have internal engagements with all parties, with roles or stakes in the partnership. For all partners, internal engagement is, as with any project, getting buy-in internally is key. Understanding where your partners are in that process, assisting your partners in achieving that are also key. In putting together a partnership with the IFC, we on many occasions went to meet their board. Sometimes, hearing from an outside or a third party can help to reinforce what an individual, an internal team is trying to achieve. So bringing, being willing to go in and speak to key stakeholders within your partner's organization are all ways to help drive that level of engagement, and being able to help each other, help your partners out in getting that internal buy-in and engagement is really key. Similarly, securing top-level support and project ownership from all partners, again, is important. Taking the time to set very clear partnership goals that are ambitious yet achievable and measurable. I'll come back to measurable because partnerships are, projects are complex enough as they are. When you have a project partnership, you're basically pushing the project on 3 or 4 parallel paths, and so having common goals, having common benchmarks that that each partner can go back and refer to are critical. Taking the time to understand what each partner can contribute, not make assumptions in terms of what they're going to bring to the table, but understand what they can contribute, what they can do, what their barriers are, and what their value systems are. Taking the time to do a proper cost-benefit analysis for all partners, and having an honest view of how much value each partner is getting, and planning to resource accordingly. I think one of the key, the biggest drivers of a breakup, if you will, or a destruction of a partnership is when one partner is either receiving a lot less value out of the partnership, or their value is eroded through the process of the partnership. So if things change, all of a sudden partner X is no longer receiving any value, not surprisingly, partner X is going to contribute less. And the value that they may contribute, they may be getting versus the contributions that are required from them may be out of whack. Knowing and understanding that, having an eye on that helps one to be able to make whatever kinds of adjustments may be needed, in anticipation of that, and or fall back on the old reliable trust. Just going to the partner and saying, look, I understand that this may not be as valuable to you, but we all still agree on the overall goal, and we'd really appreciate it if you would meet your commitments or stick to your commitments. Identify opportunities for leverage, for example, matching grants, leveraging scale wherever possible. For a partner to win, being able to go back into your organization and say, look, we are contributing X, but we are getting X, Y, Z out of this. We're getting a lot more out of this than we could get on our own, or than we put in, is a win-win for each partner. The implementing stage, actually, once if the building stage is done well, implementing stage is, I don't want to say easy, but easier. And again, as I talk about implementing, again, not so much the implementing of the project, but what happens during the implementing of the project, what happens to the partnership, or what needs to happen to the partnership. It's important to provide dedicated resources, not just for the project, but for managing the partnership. Talked in the last slide about, a number, more than 10 aspects to the partnership. Managing all of that requires resources. And it's important that in managing the project, one looks at the management of the partnership as well, and looks at it, as a key component of the success of managing this project. Continuing to nurture and grow the partnership and ensure continued common understanding throughout the process through frequent updates and meetings. Keeping all key stakeholders engaged throughout the process, especially senior management, making sure that there are no surprises. Developing clear partnership operating and governance systems to help drive progress and manage issues as they arise. And also to ensure that there continues to be throughout the project a common set of principles, a common set of standards, a common understanding of what each partner is required to contribute is key. Monitoring progress, frequently communicating progress towards goals, because for many partners, their contribution is based on the achievement of specific goals. Ensuring that everybody is on the same page in terms of what has been achieved as a result of that, what is quote unquote owed by each partner. Each partner being able to go back and report internally as well about the progress, and expect the unexpected, as you would for any project, and mitigate for risks. Unexpected, unexpected activity, things that happen that we don't expect, are risky for any project, but even more so for a partnership-based project, because again, risks affect each partner differently. With every time the project changes, every time there is a difference versus what is expected, it's important to go back and get, to ensure that each partner and their organization and their key stakeholders are still on board, irrespective of those changes. Monitoring and communicating on progress. So having very key, very clear key performance indicators that everybody can agree on, so that the progress is not, it's based on objective measures and not subjective. Everybody's reading off the same hymn sheet, if you will. In many projects, we bring in a third party to do monitoring and evaluation, a neutral third party to do monitoring and evaluation, again, so that those key performance indicators, assessment of those key performance indicators is something that is not going to be questioned among the various parties in the partnership. So, agreeing on those key performance indicators up front, agreeing on who that third party might be, whether it's an E.N.G.I.N.E or another organization. All of those are key aspects of being able to track and monitor successfully. And I'll just talk a little bit again about building trust, because this is such a key component of successful partnerships. In fact, to me, the most important success factor in a partnership. While other aspects of the relationship can fail, this factor can rectify or can help keep a partnership going even in the face of issues with some of the other aspects. So what does it take to build trust? And I think this is as it would be with any relationship, understanding the individual and the shared goals. It's important to understand your partner's value and reward systems. So what you are rewarded for and recognized for may be very different for a partner. Understanding what success and failure looks like for each partner can also help in terms of tailoring aspects of the project in a way that ensures that each partner does have the opportunity to succeed according to their own value and reward systems. Setting clear expectations. I find it's important to anticipate and get those hard conversations out of the way early before you start. It's so much easier to have conversations about what if before whatever situation has arisen, to understand what difficulties that certain situations may bring up, and what action one might want to take if certain things, if a certain issue was to arise. So setting those expectations, being very clear, and being very honest with your partners up front, even to the point of saying, look, if this or that happens, then we really can't continue in the partnership. I think those are really important conversations to have up front, and not wait until the situation arises. Take time to understand what your partners are looking for, what they're looking to get out of the partnership. If it's clear that they won't get what they need, if you can see that, have the courage to say so, and say so upfront. You may really, really want a partner on board. You can see the value that they will bring, but if it's very clear that they will not be getting out of this partnership what they think or what they expect they're going to be getting, again, really important for that to be pointed out upfront. It is a lot. It is a lot less expensive to lose a partner early in the relationship before a lot has been invested, than to lose them at a point where everything has already, you've made all the investments, you're halfway through, and at that point a partner says, this isn't working for us, we need to pull out. aligning on the benefits. If partnership benefits are skewed, identify and address this upfront. So taking, that last point to the next level, not everybody is going to benefit in equally. That's fine as long as everybody understands that, and as long as everybody's happy with what they are going to be getting. And throughout the partnership, be honest. If something isn't working, say so. Having those difficult conversations, are, as I said, it's easier to do upfront. But if that conversation has to be had in the midst of a project, it's important to do so. We have had to part ways with partners that are not delivering. Partners who, because you've spent the time and invested the time in building trust, it's difficult to say to them, look, this isn't working. You're not delivering what you said you were going to do, and we're going to have to bring in somebody else. It is important to do that throughout the partnership, to have those honest and upfront conversations in order to be able to deliver. We may think we're doing favors to partners by not pointing out their failings, but in the end, if everybody fails to achieve what we set out to do, then it isn't. It's not a win for anybody. I think one of the most difficult conversations I've ever had was with the monitoring and evaluation agency that we had brought on board. Which in retrospect, probably there were a lot of warning signs early on. Loss of key data. But at almost 3/4 of the way through, had to cut ties with this particular partner, which set the entire partnership back significantly. But the alternative would have been to continue to the end and have results that we could not all be confident of. Going to our funding partner and saying, look, we're going to have to do this. We're going to have to let go of the monitoring and evaluation partner. It means that we're going to have to repeat several aspects of the project. It's going to increase our costs. But for us to be able to achieve what we set out to achieve, for us to be able to say conclusively that we have accomplished what we said we were going to accomplish, and for us to be sure that whatever we're doing is effective, sometimes it is important and necessary to have those honest conversations, and when something isn't working, to say so and to take action. So, gone through a lot of different aspects of what a successful partnership should look like. So I've tried to now summarize this into these 10 tips for developing successful partnerships. Number 1, start with a clear end goal. Take time to envision what the success looks like. Map opportunities at the intersection of the business need, the societal need, the funding needs. Invest time in scoping the job. Partnerships should be synergistic, bringing together the best to achieve goals that no one partner could achieve on their own. Build trust. Again, as I said, for me, this is probably the single most important tip. Invest time in relationship building upfront before you start and throughout the duration of the partnership. Many of the partners that I worked with over the years I count as dear friends today. It wasn't always that way. Partnerships can be emotional, they can be difficult, but if you built that trust along the way, those partners can be invaluable, including supporters for future projects, but also great sources of honesty in terms of how you operate, how you are perceived, how your company is perceived. Define mutual interests. A good partnership should create value for all partners, not necessarily equal value, but every partner should be getting something out of it. And it's important to state up front, to be clear up front, what that value is for each individual partner. Set clear partnership goals and performance criteria. And again, that is different than the project criteria. But what does each partner expect to gain? What do we expect in terms of performance from each partner? Monitor and communicate progress against goals as you go along. Identify all the key stakeholders. So, through the stakeholder mapping, identify who are all the people who are likely to gain from whatever it is, the project that you're looking to do. That will help to identify who potential partners might be. Identify who peripheral stakeholders may be. They may or may not be part of the partnership. Understand not just who's likely to gain, but who's likely to lose from a project. And include those as stakeholders, again, not necessarily partners, but key stakeholders who have to have their interests managed throughout the duration of the project. Get buy-in upfront and throughout the process from the top leadership, keeping leadership engaged throughout, from key stakeholders in the partnership, as I said, who stands to lose, who stands to gain, and assist each other, help each other as partners to get and secure that buy-in. As I said, sometimes, we may not be willing to listen to our colleagues internally, but when somebody comes in from outside who has a different perspective or a different viewpoint, sometimes that helps to drive the impact or the buy-in of certain relationships. And I know that I did this many times for my partners, went to present to their leadership or to their colleagues, and invited them to do the same for at my board meetings. It just provides another perspective, and another level of endorsement, if you will. Make it official. Ensure that there are clear instruments for commitment. Put it in writing. Contracts, MOUs, all of those are really key to ensuring that everybody's clear in terms of what the partnership should deliver. Develop clear partnership operating and governance systems to drive progress and manage any issues that come up. And provide dedicated resources, not just for the project, but for the partnership. Nurture and manage the partnership. Dedicated account resources. In many of the projects that I worked on, particularly towards the end of my career, we had project teams that did the actual work. And my focus was on identifying partners, building those partnerships, and nurturing those partnerships, ensuring that everybody was clear on what the objectives were, everybody was getting what they expected out of the partnerships. Some of these are very high-level partnerships that have implications for the project and the business well beyond simply that particular initiative. Many times we are partnering with government. So you're managing a partnership that has far-reaching implications, not just for the partnership, the project and the partnership, but for the company as a whole, and ensuring that those partnerships are being nurtured and grown. All of that is key, and having the dedicated resources to do that. I think I've covered everything. Happy to take any questions at this point, or comments or input. Again, also always learning in this respect, so also very interested in perspective from others on the line about what their experiences have been.
Thank you, Sonia, so much. It was really, really extremely interesting. For everybody that's hearing us, you can go into the chat and send me your questions. I wrote down a couple myself. And you talk about trust being obviously one of the most important ones within these partnerships. And I was curious, as you know, things in this fast-paced environment and just continues to get faster, and people start moving around more within, you know, organizations, companies, etc. How do you recommend, or what have you seen that is successful in trying to keep this trust that takes a long time to build with people, and then if, you know, people within those organizations move away, it sort of you need to start to build it all over again? Like, what's your experience on that, and how do you see it evolving as things continue to move fast going forward?
Well, I think you've identified sort of one of the key challenges in a partnership, and as you say, you know, organizations change. You know, I think for me that's one of the key reasons why it's important to get leadership buy-in. Leadership turns over probably a little less frequently than your project management team might, and so having buy-in at that high level is key, so that you know, the objectives of the partnership don't you know, stay the commitments remain in place. You know, I talked about nurturing the partnership on an ongoing basis. You know, so a partnership isn't, you know, the partnership building is not in and of itself sufficient. You have to keep going back. You have to keep nurturing. You have to, you know, having a good transition when you do lose a key partner. You know, many times, you know, partnerships and these projects, people have a lot of passion for them. So whoever they're bringing on board, you know, your outgoing partner is going to be, you know, a huge advocate, hopefully, for the project, and ensuring that their successor is vested. But you know, the reality is you're going to have to go back to the building stage when you have a new partner. You are going to have to, you know, a lot of the steps that I talked about, getting their buy-in, understanding what their key values and successes look like. One of the perils, I think, when projects change over is, you know, each person comes in with a view towards setting their own agenda, or you know, making their own mark, and so ensuring that they have an opportunity to win, even, you know, they may not have been there at the inception of the project, but that they have an opportunity to win, and they have an opportunity to own the successes of the project, I think are most key in that. You know, partnerships are about human relationships at the end of the day, and so, you know, understanding that, and understanding that this new individual or individuals also needs to get something out of the partnership is key. But you know, it is difficult when you have those changes.
Sure, yes. I have a couple of questions here. It seems that tips 9 and 10 were missing from your previous slides. I did not notice that.
Oh, sorry. I think 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I repeated 7 and 8. I apologize.
Oh, yes, you're right.
I apologize for that.
Thank you.
Bad editing.
Yes. So what kind of activities have you proven to be effective to set values of the partnership and build trust?
You know, I mean, some of them are the more obvious ones. You know, take time out of the boardroom to get to know these individuals. Get to know them as individuals. Get to know how they, you know, how they think, how they operate. Um, you know, understanding the value systems and the reward systems. I can't emphasize that enough. If you understand what somebody is going to, you know, what that is, what are the value systems? It's you know, I always know when I've accomplished that. When you walk in and you present something, and you know, immediately the heads start nodding. You know, I was at a meeting a couple of days ago, and I knew going into the meeting that this particular group, you know, this was a financing group, but they were going to be rewarded on providing businesses to female led companies, and to creating jobs and creating jobs for women. They had never articulated that, but you could sort of read through the lines. And so I put those as the KPIs. And, you know, even before I was done talking, you know, everyone was like, all right, we're on board. So, you know, understanding what in their environment, in their context, success looks like. You know, the you know, there is the boardroom discussion as well. I think is key. You know, being able to sit around a table, and you know, state what you're looking for. And again, this is why I said the honesty piece is important. You know, we all start out being very, very polite, but if we're not honest, then it's difficult to establish that trust up front. You know, but once you have those common goals, once you understand what each of you is looking for, you know, key part of establishing that trust is establishing to your partners that you are there not just to get what you want, but to help them to get what they are looking for, that their success, you are vested in their success. You know, which you know, as you would be for anybody that you care about. Once people understand that it's not just about what you're going to get, but you're also interested in ensuring that they look good and they succeed, I think those are all key components of you know, the building trust.
Sure, sure. You mentioned many of these tips came out of your switch from profit to nonprofit. How would you tweak or change these tips for the nonprofit sector specifically, if at all?
For the nonprofit or for the profit?
For the nonprofit.
You know, I kind of worked at a very interesting intersection. I worked at the intersection of business, nonprofit, and government. Those were sort of the three partners that tended to be around the table. So I don't know that the tips would be very different. I think a lot of the principles would be the same. Taking the time to build those relationships. The probably what I would say for a nonprofit would be transparency. The nonprofit sort of holds, if you know, the nonprofit / implementing partner tends to hold a lot of the information, the records. They actually do the work, and so having trust from their partners is key. Having, you know, for me, for example, as the, you know, the corporate, I'm reporting back to my board that we have, you know, economically empowered X number of women, or we've done, you know, we've provided training for X number of youth. I need to know that I can trust whatever my implementing partner says. So for them being 100% transparent, because that's not always the case. A lot of times getting that information is like pulling teeth. You know, being very open as well. You know, for me, a red flag would always go up when I would have, you know, you always have somebody in the company wants to go visit a project, and when, you know, when I'm told, oh no, you can't, you know, because blah blah blah, but we can take you to see a different one. That always raises some red flags. So I think transparency, honesty, You know, and then just a focus on results, a focus on delivering what was committed. You know, but other than that, I think a lot of the principles, the tips would be similar.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. On your slide 13, where you're talking about the opportunity mapping between each of the partners, in cases where there's overlapping skills that partners bring, do you feel like this becomes a challenge, a conflict, and how do you navigate? An example is like technical expertise.
Yes, I think that's a common issue where you do see that. You know, again, I think that's why the mapping exercise is really key in terms of who does what.
Okay.
It may be it's very common that you know we all try to be all things to all people, and you
Yes.
know, we ask most implementing partners, can you do training? Can you do we can do everything, but they may not be as good at one aspect versus another partner. So I think again that having that honest discussion around the table that says, you know what, we're gonna, you know, X partner will do this aspect of it, and that partner will do, you know, another aspect of it. It is a difficult conversation to have a lot of times because money is involved. And so I may be giving partner X a part of the job that partner Y thinks they should get. You know, and then you know, knowing that and knowing that there is, I don't know, call it a rivalry almost, and you know, taking, you know, managing that rivalry as well. I've had instances where one partner actually actively tried to sabotage the other, because they wanted to, you know, they felt they could do more, and they didn't understand why they were not being given, you know, the entire project. Sometimes just from a governance standpoint, it is better to have multiple partners working on a project. And, you know, in those instances, you just have to be very, very careful, you know, to ensure that everybody's very, very clear. And again, you know, I talked a lot about document, put it all on paper, including
Mm-hmm.
what am I expecting each partner to deliver.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, we've run out of time. I thank you so, so much for your time and for these amazing tips and for sharing your experience, very vast experience. And I definitely look forward to continuing the conversation in Madrid in October. So thank you so much for everything, Susan.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for listening.
Perfect. So I'll take control back. Give me 1 second. And just a couple of quick closing announcements. Like I said at the beginning, all our webinars are recorded. So if you want to go back and review anything from this webinar or any of our other previous webinars, you can go to our P&G Alumni Network YouTube channel and they'll be all there. Also, please get involved, sign up for updates at pngalums.com, support the foundation, very, very important, pngalums.com foundation. Partner with us through sponsoring and volunteer, start, join a chapter. There's a lot of things that you can do through the alumni. So please participate as much as you can. I know that everybody will appreciate that very much. You can also send us an email at hello@pngalums.com. And next month, we have another exciting webinar, enrichment webinar. It's on July 9th, and we'll have Molly Cook that she'll talk about, you know, women empowerment and some tips on how EY is approaching this important topic. So join us then. And in the meantime, this is your host, Ileana Rojas, and I wish you all a great rest of your day, wherever in the world you may be. Thank you so much for joining.